This is Creepy and Geeky, a part of the Morbidly Beautiful Podcast Network. Welcome to Creepy and Geeky. I'm your host, Robert, and today is my 100th episode. Who better to join me for this milestone are my two most frequent guests, my daughter, Katrina, and my great friend and fellow podcaster, Donna Tha Dead. Welcome back to the show, ladies.
Woohoo!
Thank you,
Welcome.
thank you.
Thanks for coming, having me back again. I'm like tripping all over my words. I swear I did not drink. I'm just letting y'all know right now.
You guys are always so funny too, because anytime you guys are both on the show together, you guys both like pause and hesitate, waiting for the other person to say something.
Because we never know who's gonna go first. We're trying to be polite.
And then you guys trip over each
Yeah,
other.
Dad.
Oh, you guys are funny. Anyway, so for this 100th episode, we'll be talking about a movie that is a huge favorite for a lot of people and is one of the most highly regarded horror movies of all time, the 1973 classic, The Exorcist. And we'll also be talking about the recently released legacy sequel, Exorcist Believer. So when we get to that point, we'll put up a huge spoiler warning because, of course, we're going to spoil it as usual. So if you don't want to listen to spoilers for the new movie, you'll have to cut it off then, watch the movie, and come back. But at least for the beginning, we're going to be talking about the original, The Exorcist, which is something I honestly didn't think I'd be talking about much on the show, just because I've never been a really big fan of this movie. So, but it's been over 20 years, I think, since I last saw it. So I was willing to, go back, rewatch it, see maybe if I'd changed my mind any, and I kind of have. Not a whole lot, but I think it's probably a little bit better than I thought it was before. So, but now I'll be able to find out what Donna thinks and what Katrina thinks about the movie as well. So,
I mean,
so
I'm kind of in agreement with you. I've never really been a huge fan of it, despite loving horror
right.
movies. I'm just not a big possession person, like in
That's
films.
my thing. Yeah.
I thought it was better rewatching it recently. I'm like you. I feel like I can see why there is such a love for it watching it this go around. But
I
it's
kind of
yeah,
can, but at the same time, I'm like, I still don't understand the enthusiasm for it.
yeah,
The
there's a
fact
lot
that
of love.
yeah, like it's such a slow burn, and a slow burn with barely anything happening and so many different storylines going through it that they kind
Hmm.
of bop back and forth. Like if we'd had maybe, I don't know, Father Karras's story in the beginning leading up to a certain point, and then Reagan and Chris's storyline up to a point. And then we never really get anything with Father Marin except for in the very beginning and at the
Hmm.
very end. So it's kind of like there's so many different plots going on and everything else that it was just like I still liked it more this time. I think that I've matured as a horror watcher
Hmm.
now, but I'm in the same place as you where possession horror doesn't do a lot for me. Um and like I said, because of the slow burn nature of it and kind of the all over the place back and forth with the narrative, and that's fine. I've seen other movies that do the same thing and I've enjoyed those
Right.
movies, but for some reason this one still bugs me a little bit because the story just isn't as interesting, I think, to me. And I get that it's wildly interesting to other people. I just don't understand completely. But what did you think, Katrina? You didn't say
So
anything before, so
yeah, I didn't the not a fan personally.
Yeah.
Um, plain and simple. I the first movie, it could not hold my attention. Like I was on my phone, I was nearly falling asleep in some parts. I could I think the story for me was a little bit difficult to follow and I was losing interest so much that even if there was story that I could follow, I wasn't paying attention enough to
Mm-hmm.
catch it.
Right.
So I finished the movie feeling like I had wasted time. Like I could have been doing something else rather than watching the movie. But
And it's a long
it
movie
was
too. It's
it
I
was
think it's almost
Yeah,
2 hours
it's super
long.
long. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
normally the slow burn horror, I can sit and watch something that's going to take a while to
Yeah.
build up to something. But I felt the same way. I was just kind of like, I know, this is regarded as one of the classics, but I'm just like, but why though? I mean,
Right.
I feel like I could read the book and maybe I would enjoy the book way more than I enjoyed the film, if that makes any
Maybe.
sense at all.
Yeah.
It's just not
Yeah.
it's kind of like what
No,
you
and I
said. It's like we've got three different things going on and none of them are
yeah.
really fleshed out. And it's kind of like I get little piecemeals of, and I get it, all of these things have to come together, but it still feels kind of dry. Like
Right.
there's no oomph to it. I don't know.
I would have liked to have seen maybe their stories cross in and out of each other. Maybe that would have made more sense. And so that at least there'd be, I don't know, something more going
Right.
on. But like, you always see the clips from this movie. And when watching it this time, I was like, all those clips happen in the like last 20 goddamn minutes of
Mhm.
this movie. Like almost everything, not everything, but a good portion of it happens at the very end. And I'm like, I don't know. I think sometimes modern movies do things a lot better with their pacing and their editing and everything. And whereas this movie doesn't give me that sense of dread that I would want for
This movie
something like
felt like it
this.
was like 80 or 90% exposition.
Mhm.
And then the
Yeah,
rest of the movie happened in like the last 20 minutes.
right. Because I get it. Like, Father Karras has this, like he's having kind of a crisis of faith,
Mhm.
and his mother's dying, and then she does die. And I get that that's the whole point of that is then to get to him being in the exorcism and him having to grapple with that faith and understanding, okay, yes, this is real, this is something I have to do. And then the demons also throwing out about his mother
The
and
personal
and all this
stuff.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so so I get that that's what that has to do, but I don't know, I don't know, it's just sometimes, and not, I won't say this about all 70s movies, but sometimes some 70s movies were so like slow and self-indulgent in a way that
Mhm.
like they didn't get to the point quick enough. um and it's not just the 70s, it was like, even today movies are like that, but those movies are boring to me too. So but it's just that's what's frustrating about the movie, is that I feel like there's a good movie in there, but if you strip away some of it, it would make it better. And
And
that's
I
why,
think too,
and I only watched the regular theatrical version. I don't know if watching the extended director's cut would be any better, because that just
no,
means
it
you're giving me
wouldn't.
more stuff,
It
you know.
wouldn't, because that's the one I
So
watched and I was just like, yeah, what did you really add? Because nothing is, I
yeah.
mean, it's still boring. Um, and I think too, because it was a movie in the 70s and it was so groundbreaking because they were, having
Yeah.
a kid say all of these filthy things and the
Yeah.
special effects were real creepy. I think for them that's shocking.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because now I've gotten so desensitized to horror movies.
Right.
I'm just kind of like that really wasn't that scary, but okay, I'll put myself in the place of someone in the 70s who's never seen something this gross, I guess. Um, but
Well, and that's the
yeah, I
other,
don't
yeah,
know.
go ahead, sorry.
No, I don't know, man. I watching it again, like I said, I got a little bit more respect for it, but
Yeah.
it's just not for me. It really I recently watched a possession movie that I thought was extremely good, and I don't even like possession movies, and
Right.
that had me in more of a state of, oh my God, what's gonna happen than this movie did.
Yeah. No, and that's the same thing. Like I would say I'm not really a fan of possession movies, but of course, obviously my favorite um horror
Evil Dead.
franchise is the Evil Dead franchise, and that's all about being possessed. So,
Right.
So I guess, when you do it in a good way, do it in a way I like that, then yes, I like that stuff. But this movie, I was gonna say something and I forgot. Um, oh, but like putting it into the context of the time period and
Hmm.
that the reason why it was the scariest movie of its time, and I understand, fine. There were people were more religious at the time.
Hmm.
Um, and there was a lot of that was freaky to them, like a demon possessing a child and everything like that. But like you said, we've seen so many other movies that are like even more horrible,
Hmm.
that in terms of the gore and the violence and the kids cursing and whatever else, that it seems so tame in comparison these days. And so yeah, going back and watching it, while I agree with you, I've got a little bit more respect for it, and I enjoyed it slightly more than I probably would have
Hmm.
before. That I still don't see it as a great movie. It's still not going to ever be anywhere near my top 10. I don't even think it's going to crack my top 100, honestly. So it's just, to me, there's so many other better movies that are more entertaining and just flow better.
Yeah, and it kind of sucks for me
Before
too,
the
because
oh,
oh, go ahead.
before we started talking, I watched like a 4-minute video on YouTube of like a recap of the movie. And I understood the movie more from that 4-minute recap than I did trying to watch the
Well,
entire
yeah,
thing,
because it breaks it
You're
down. Yeah,
right.
it summarizes it so much better than the movie does.
which is really sad. I feel like you should be able to watch a movie and be able to understand it first go. At least that's how I feel about movies. I don't like to have to rewatch movies unless it's a movie that I like, but I movies should be a one and done, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like,
True. Yeah.
yeah.
What were you
Yeah,
gonna say, Donna?
I was just gonna say it sucks it sucks for me on a personal level just because there's so many good actors in this movie. Like
Yeah,
and the director alone, these are people you expect to bring a little bit more of the A game. And I mean, they're working with what they have and I
right,
got it. They got a vision. And like you said, people definitely are more religious. We also have like Amityville Horror, which also deals with possession and a haunted house and all of that. And
right,
I guess people are just so afraid of hell and what happens
right.
that we just between that and The Omen, we just had so many of these like oh my God, it's satanic movies and
Yeah, yeah.
I thought we had a satanic panic in the 80s, but clearly the 70s is where this
Oh,
started.
yeah, yeah. It was where it
Um,
started for sure.
so I mean, I remember stories of my mom saying, that she went and saw this movie and, she couldn't sleep and she was so scared. And I
Right.
was like,
Yeah.
why though? But why? Like, what would you ever need to worry about being possessed? I mean, what in what world? But I get it. I don't necessarily understand it, but I get it. It's a lot of
Right.
people don't understand why I like The Thing or why I like The Shining. A lot of people think The Shining is overrated, so I get that.
Me.
Um, that's okay, and that's okay.
Right, right.
But there's just something about this one, I feel like Katrina, the more I was watching it, I found myself checking my phone and I found myself my attention was elsewhere because I really couldn't get into the whole mindset of this movie. Like I need to be captivated and watch everything. And
Right.
I don't know. It just it's one that after watching, I kind of can see it, but not really.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's one of those movies that having rewatched it and being older now, like I said, it's been over 20 years for me. So
Yeah.
going back and rewatching it and I can appreciate aspects of it now. And don't get me wrong, the last 20-30 minutes of it are actually really good. Like
Mhm.
the whole exorcism part of it, and and the lead up with everything with Reagan is good. Don't get me wrong. I like all of that. And I feel like they can probably get to it a little bit quicker. Um,
Mhm.
and we're going to kind of get into this with the neck with Exorcist Believer. But I think that there's a way to tell this story that's just quicker, better. And obviously we're in the minority. That like so many people love The Exorcist and will claim that it's one of the best horror movies ever. And which I always find like kind of crappy. Um, too, because like it's like whenever people claim like some older movie is, oh, it's the best movie ever made, and I'm like, so you're shitting on all the other movies that come afterward and saying that nothing's ever going to be better or compared to it and everything like that. And I'm like, y'all are lying, okay? Because you are holding this thing up to a pedestal that nobody else can reach in your personal opinion. And that's fine. It's your own personal opinion. But when
Right.
you
Yeah.
claim it's
If
the
that's
best
your
thing
own,
ever, yeah,
if it's your personal opinion though, because some people don't want to say
some
that
people
they
don't.
don't like
Yeah.
something because everybody else does. You got to be objective. Like, really, do you really like
Yeah.
this movie, or do you saying you like it because it's on everybody's top
Right.
10 horror movies of all time? I mean,
Exactly.
I respect the art. I just don't think it's that great.
Exactly. And that's how I feel about it at this point. Is just like it's an okay movie. I respect
Hmm.
what they did. I respect that the time and period it came out in, and that it captivated everybody.
Right.
And it did well, and it's become this classic, and I'm not going to shit on that at all. I'm not saying that it's not a classic and that it doesn't deserve that, because it does.
No,
But
hell yeah, it does.
for
Definitely. I
yeah,
mean, that's one thing. I will never shit on anybody's cupcake. I mean, this was your vision. This was what you wanted to do. Do I particularly think it's the best? No. But
exactly.
it is good for the time that it came out, and it is
Yeah.
good for what it was. We have a single mom who's a movie star, and she's dealing with I almost felt like it was like dealing with a teenager, like that was the
Oh
adolescent,
yeah.
you know, that's what being a teenager feels like. You're going through all of these changes, not necessarily the ones that Reagan was going through, but she's dealing with things she has no idea what she's supposed to
Yeah.
do. So what can you do? You reach out and you have, luckily, which I thought was hilarious, that she has a priest that was hanging out at her house when they had the party, who just
Right?
happened to be sitting there kicking back with drinks and whatnot. And lo and behold, he has to hook up, and that guy has to get a hookup, and then they do this thing, and it's like I really, I don't know. I just wanted more. I wish we had more of
Yeah.
Max von Sydow. I wish we had more backstory on Father Karras. I mean, we got that
Yeah.
little blurb, like you said, but I needed more. I need more exposition on everybody to know exactly
But
why
in
I'm
a
supposed to
better
be so
way than
invested
they gave it
in
too,
a
because we
better
did
way.
get, yeah, we did get some, but it just came in such weird little drips and drops and everything like that, that it was just like, I don't know, that's not really enough. And I did want to mention something that was crazy too. You go back and watch something from the 70s or 80s or something like that, and you see all these things where you're just like, that shit doesn't exist anymore. And the one thing that I noticed the most in this was everybody was fucking smoking. Like even in the
Everywhere
hospital, they
in
were
the
lighting up.
hospital. I
I
noticed that
was,
when I saw that, I was like, they would have just kicked your ass to the curb. What is going on
but
here?
that's
Like,
how it was when we were kids in the
it was
70s and 80s.
ridiculous.
Everywhere was like, and you would go to the restaurant and it was filled with smoke. You'd go on the airplane, it was filled with smoke. Like it was disgusting. Like people smoked anywhere and everywhere they could.
Yeah,
And
when they showed
like,
them in the hospital, I was dying. I was like, oh my
oh,
God, there's no way, man. There's no way. But they did.
yeah, yeah. No, it's like Katrina. Like I don't know if you noticed that, but it's like it's crazy. Kids these days, they don't even know
I
what that was like.
when I first like found out that like smoking was like in some way kind of like banned from being in films, unless like I kept noticing the lack of it, and then I started noticing like after a certain year, like the content that I was watching, it started happening more like further
Hmm.
back. And then also in the movies that play in the theaters now, there's a blurb at the end of it. So there's that blurb about like there was no mistreatment of animals. There's also a
Right.
blurb at
Right.
the end if there's smoking in the movies. It says there was no sponsorship or something to include the portrayal of tobacco use or something like that.
Holy crap.
And I think that is a very interesting like blurb that they have to include because
Right.
smoking is so like
Well, it's like
not great
when
for your
they
health.
yeah. Well, it's like when they make movies about the 70s or 80s nowadays, and they like you see a bunch of people smoking in those and stuff like that. That is still not nearly as much as you saw
No.
in the fucking Exorcist, because literally every scene somebody was lighting up. And it was just like, holy crap, everybody was smoking constantly everywhere. And that's literally how it was in the world. Because
Yeah.
not like it was so commonplace that people could just like, let's pop a cigarette in our mouth, like we said, in the hospital, where you would think would be like a no-go because of all the
You
oxygen
got
and equipment and
oxygen.
everything
Yeah.
else. Like, no, everybody was smoking everywhere. The doctors were smoking.
The doctors would be
Like,
smoking.
yeah. And now at least, and I think it was the late 80s, early 90s when they put in a full ban on cigarettes in public areas like restaurants, airplanes, just everywhere. They were like, nope, no more smoking everywhere. We know the dangers of it now. We're going to ban it everywhere. And there was a pushback on it, but they managed to get it kind of banned everywhere, but designated smoking areas. And so,
I
and that was
mean,
part of it
back when
too.
cars were being made back then, there was literal like cigarette lighters in the car.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and ashtrays,
And
Yeah,
like not
and
just
ashtrays.
cigarette
ashtrays. Like it
lighters.
was
Yeah,
it was such like a big deal. Like I can't imagine that being a thing now with like vape pens. Like I can't imagine just having like being able to like I don't even know what they would have, like a specific USB that like you can charge it with. Like
I
Charge
know,
it.
but
I don't
Yeah.
like,
even like or like maybe with like if weed gets legalized, maybe they'll start including that shit again with like weed. I don't know.
no,
It's just
no,
very
they'll never do
interesting.
that. No, I just think that's funny that that this is such a throwback movie. Like when you watch something like this, that you notice those things. Just it's so weird
Yeah.
and
It's wild.
and kind of obnoxious at the same time. So it's just yeah, it's but I liked the performances in this. I think everybody did a good job.
Hmm.
Like that, and that's the thing, like as much as I sound like I'm shitting on the movie and everything like that, I don't think it's a terrible movie. I don't think it's bad. I just think it could have been um edited slash written slightly better. And I know the writer of the book wrote the screenplays, so
Hmm.
William Peter Blatty. And it's not a bad story. Again, I just think that it could have been, I think it's mostly just editing. Could have just punched it up a little bit better and made some of it quicker and more interesting to begin with, like earlier in the story, because it just seems to take a while to get to the point. So, but I like everybody's performances. Uh, oh God, I'm totally blanking on everybody's names right now.
Which
Um,
one? Max von Sydow or Ellen
no,
Burstyn or
Ellen Burstyn, yeah, she's great. And then Reagan, I can't, Linda Blair. Um, she was really great in it too. I mean, being like 12 years old and having to do the weird shit that she had to do and everything is just like it's a great performance.
it
So
is a
like
really good performance.
yeah,
Like she's still a kid, she's not into the she's not in that whole Dakota Fanning where they're like child actors, but they act like they're 45 years old. You very much believe that she's a kid and she doesn't know what's going on, and all of this stuff is happening to her. I feel really bad for her, and then I felt bad for Linda Blair and the actress because I mean this poor kid got death threats off of this movie, and that was ridiculous. It's like an acting
what?
job, and yeah, you haven't heard these stories. Okay, so
No.
apparently, yeah. So apparently, the director, William Friedkin, he had to hire bodyguards for her for 6 months because she got death threats after this movie. Like,
Wow.
it's
That's
ridiculous.
terrible.
People were completely unhinged, and it's like, can you not separate that this is fiction? Like, she's an
No,
actress.
people
This is not.
still can't do that.
Yeah, I know. It's terrible. That's a terrible thing. But
Ridiculous.
yeah, he actually had to get bodyguards for this child. And this was her first
Wow.
like huge major role. So can you imagine? I don't think I would even want to act after something like that if somebody came at me like that.
Right?
This movie, it shook a lot of people, I mean, to
It
their
did.
core.
It was like that's the thing. Like, I mean, and I was born the year after this came out, but it was still a phenomenon well into the 80s.
Oh yeah.
Um and just it was still shaking everybody to their core even at that point. And you couldn't be helped because the satanic panic shit was going on again. So everybody was just like freaked out by it. And that's why I really think that's mostly why it's like everything surrounding it more than anything else is what kept it feeling like it was so much better than it was. And again, it's
Hmm.
a good movie. I don't think it's a bad movie. But it's just I feel like the everything around it made it even more so
Hmm.
for a lot of people. So
And then we also got to give it up that it is, one of the first horror films to be nominated for Best Picture.
yeah,
So, I
yeah.
mean, it clearly went
It struck a
through
chord.
with a lot of people. Yeah, it
Yeah,
really did. And I can tell you it was definitely one of my mom's favorites. Like I said, she went and
yeah.
saw it and it freaked her out. And I can only imagine. Um, but yeah, once again, not crapping on it. I know
Yeah,
it is a solid film, but
it
for me,
is.
the pacing and kind of the way the characters didn't really kind of click for me. I think that's my biggest problem. And then we
Yeah,
also have the Ouija board thing, that allegedly started the whole thing, and I'm like, why is it always the Ouija board? Come on,
right.
we got to do something else. I would rather be anything. I would rather be the Necronomicon than to be a Ouija board. I just feel like that's such a cheap shot. I don't know.
Well, and
Um,
it's so funny too because the Ouija board that we see in that is just the one that was put out as a board game thing. You know what
right.
I mean? It's like it's not an actual spirit board. Like it's just I don't know. That whole concept is pretty much like bogus.
Yeah.
So it's just so funny.
Have y'all watched any of the other sequels in this particular, not the one we're going to be talking about, but any of the
Mm, I have not yet. It is on my agenda to do. I do want to watch the other ones, especially Exorcist 3, because I know there's a lot of people who love that one. And it's one I'd like to check out. So
Yeah, when you do, let me know. That's all. I need to talk over the other ones, but I need to have somebody else watch them because nobody in my house
yeah.
will watch them. So,
All right. Katrina, did you have anything else you want to say about The Exorcist, the original?
No, I didn't really like I wasn't paying attention for like half of it. So it's like I can't really talk about any of it. And I don't have that like childhood like experience that y'all got going
Yeah.
on, your bonding and everything. So I'm just like yeah.
All right. All right. Well, if you guys are okay, we'll go ahead and move on to the new sequel, Exorcist Believer, which is directed by David Gordon Green, who previously has directed the most recent Halloween trilogy, the much controversial trilogy.
hmm.
And this movie itself has gained quite a lot of controversy because there's a lot of people who hate on this movie. And I'm not going to lie, I actually like this one. And I thought it was a lot better than the original. So
Okay,
um,
so we're
I
gonna
didn't
get a
love
lot
it,
of hate for
but I
this.
liked it.
I actually like this one.
Yay!
Um, and I I know people. It's completely split, or mostly a lot of horror people really detest this
Yeah.
one. They really really hate this
So
one.
I honestly think people are fucking crazy. Not because necessarily think that they don't that they shouldn't not like it, but there's
Hmm.
some of the criticisms that I see about it are one, it's always just people shitting on David Gordon Green because it just seems like the popular thing to do these days.
Right.
Um, and then some people complaining that Ellen Burstyn's character doesn't really, if you take her out, it wouldn't um do anything for the plot. And so I think that there's there's only one reason for her being in there, and that's to get us to the very end of the movie, because I
Mm-hmm.
believe that that plays into the sequels. Um, and that, yes, I can understand why people are upset about that, and she didn't have much of a part or whatever, but she served her purpose for that. And that, and we'll get into that. But yes, I just wanted to remind people we're going to get into spoilers. So, but yeah, no, what did you think, Katrina, real quick?
I really like this one. It held my attention throughout the movie, and I came out of the movie feeling like, okay, yeah, I could watch that again, which are all things I didn't feel for the first one. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It was really good. I liked the pacing of it. I thought it was actually kind of like freaky compared to the
Yeah.
first one. Like it actually had some like really good freaky moments. And
Right.
yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I think that, for you, Katrina, because you are um like more freaked out by the supernatural stuff. So
Yes.
this, yeah, so this one plays more for you in a lot of ways. It gets more onto your nerves a bit, right? Like in the good way, being more scary.
I think I my only thing about this type of like paranormal stuff is I don't believe in ghostly possession.
Right, or
I
demonic
believe in
possession.
ghosts, but
Yeah.
yeah, like I don't believe that things that are not human can possess human bodies. But I yeah. So it was I think the freaky aspects came into it for me for like a lot of the like body stuff. Like the same
Right.
stuff that like I get like freaky like that's freaky in the Saw movies and stuff. Like those kinds of things. I think or like the stuff that happened in Talk to Me. Like I'm not even gonna get into like the stuff that happened in that movie, but it it's all kind of like that kind of like
Yeah.
you can feel the like
Mm-hmm.
you feel uncomfortable watching it
Yeah.
because you
Yeah.
can kind of like empathize or sympathize with like what's happening like on a human
Yeah,
level.
definitely. Donna, have you seen Talk to Me?
I haven't seen that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so
Don't
we
spoil
won't
it for
say
me.
anything. No, 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 no. But that's also a possession movie. So I mean, there's again, there's certain possession movies. So I wouldn't say I'm not a fan of possession. Maybe just I mean, maybe kind of religious. Maybe I'm not a fan of the exorcism movies. I think that's where I'm at
Maybe that's
on it.
it. Yeah,
I
that
think
sounds
that's
about
that's what
right.
it is. Because I don't mind people being possessed, like bodily possessed by things, by demons or demonic entities or whatever like that, as long as
I
it's
mean that happens in
interesting and
the
cool.
stuff that you like, the Evil Dead stuff. So
Yeah, exactly. So Evil Dead, Talk to Me. There's other things that I can't think of off the top of my head at the moment, but yeah, definitely other things like that. I'm not into exorcism movies. I think that's the issue I have, is like the religious, because I'm not religious. And so I don't really get into that. That kind of stuff doesn't freak me out. um, but yeah, no, this movie is so good. Like, you've got two little girls, although you can tell one is the main character in this,
Right.
like the main actress in this. And it's very obvious from the beginning. And they, where it's not kind of obvious in the trailers. And then it's very obvious once you start watching the movie. And I really enjoyed what they did with it, bringing in the other cultures, the other religious aspects of things. I wish they would have done more into that, and maybe they will later in the later installments. Um, but that was an aspect that I really did enjoy about it. Was
That was one that I really enjoyed too, that we got to see not only the Christian, not only the Catholic, we also got to see the Yoruba voodoo priestess and her kind of having this moment and them just kind of all working together. I thought that was pretty cool.
right. Yeah, exactly. And showing that there is a shared commonality between those beliefs and stuff, and working together to try and see what might work, because obviously the the maybe the Catholic stuff wasn't working and
Mm-hmm.
and everything. And so it was very cool. I liked it. I like the actors in this.
I
Go ahead, Katrina.
I also like that in the movie. It kind of pointed out some of the kind of like criticisms that you could have with the Catholic Church about how he the priest he wanted to help, and he like stayed outside in his car and was like praying and all that stuff, but he couldn't go inside because the rest of the clergy said no. And I think that that's I I honestly I'm not religious either, and so I didn't realize just how much the clergy has a say in how each individual priest acts, because at least for Catholicism, it's all very much you have to save face. You have to
Well,
protect the reputation of the church and all of that kind of thing. And it's I know that part of the reason why he couldn't was that it was dangerous, but I felt like more of it had to do with the kind of social political reasons why he wasn't
right.
allowed to do it. Because if it was
Mm-hmm.
just about his like it being dangerous, he like they could have let him do it if he really wanted to, but I don't know. That's how
Well,
I
you
kind of
kind
viewed that entire thing.
well, you kind of see the process a little bit in the first Exorcist as well. There are certain criteria that has to be in place
Mm-hmm.
for them to even think about doing an exorcism, like a full-on real exorcism. Um, because a lot of things can be, and you see it in the first one, where a lot of things can be mental more than
Right.
like an actual possession. So people
Like
can
when
do
he
and
threw
say
the
and do lots of weird things. Yeah.
like when he threw the tap water and it wasn't holy water, and
Yeah.
Reagan was kind of writhing. So yeah, they do have to
Yeah.
go through those rigorous tests, just so that they can give that go ahead. But you're right, it's a lot of
Oh,
angles that they have to shop before they
yeah.
can do that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it makes sense. They want to make sure that if they're involved in something, that they're not going to be blamed if it goes wrong. Um, and so it's and that was a good aspect of it. It was good that they showed that he couldn't do it, but he was trying to at least be part of it in a way by not being involved directly until he then did, and then did the most stupid thing ever. Um,
Yeah,
so
seriously.
so yeah, it's just, but yeah, this was so much more of a fun movie. Like, and part of it is because they hit the ground running. You get this short little prologue beforehand, that and then um that plays off in the end. Um, and then you get kind of right into it. The girls go missing, and then when they come back, they're both like obviously something's wrong. They're possessed, and things happen quickly. This movie didn't. It wasn't a slow burn like that, and I like again. I can appreciate a slow burn, but I like it better when it's not too slow. Um,
Right.
you know what I mean?
I mean, the
So
pacing was perfect for this
the
because,
pay,
like you
yeah,
said, we get that little prologue at the beginning, and then we get to see the families, and there's little pieces, and I love the fact that the girls were friends and they were connected, and that's why we
right.
have both of them being now possessed. It was it was actually surprisingly good. I did not go into this movie expecting to like it because I'd already seen The Exorcist, and I was like, it's not going to be that great, and I enjoyed it. It
Yeah.
was a good film. I could see myself rewatching this more than I could see myself rewatching The Exorcist.
Yeah. Well, and that's the funny thing too, because that's where a lot of people are coming at it and they're like, oh my God, Friedkin would be like turning over in his grave about this movie. And it's like,
Probably.
okay, but have you guys understood that most of the Exorcist sequels have been crap?
Yeah.
Um, so it's like if you guys really feel like this one's crap, that's fine. but don't act like this is like some untouchable. And that's how they do it. They're like, oh, this is some. They should have never made this movie. This is a sanctified, series. No, it's not. It's had shitty sequels just as much as every fucking horror
Yeah.
franchise has.
Trust me, when you
So
get to Exorcist 2, you you talk about crappy sequels. Oh my gosh.
well, and then the
Um,
Exorcist prequels too, like are like
yeah.
not great from what I've heard also. So
And then a lot of people, and not to be this person, but I am going to be this person. A lot of people are just like, "Oh man, this is so woke." Like,
oh
what?
yeah, yeah.
How is this a woke movie? I don't understand. I don't think you know what woke means, but no, this is not
No,
woke.
I've heard no,
People
because the
think
black girl lives and the white girl
people think
dies.
that
That's
everything
why it was
is
woke to people. And it's like it's
Seriously?
yes, I've heard that. I have heard that that's what people have complained about. Oh, well, the black girl died. Or the black girl lived, but the white girl died.
But did they
And it's
not see
like,
that the white dad was the one that made the choice? I mean,
right?
the
I
de
mean,
the, when they demons
but
lie. If you've seen the first Exorcist, even Marin said demons lie. So when
if you
they're telling you
see
to make
any
a choice,
Exorcist movie,
yeah,
demons lie.
then
Like,
don't do what the demon wants you to do. Just ignore it. I mean, it was that
right?
simple. That's the thing that just irritates me. It's like, well, if it had been reversed, would you still think it's woke, or would you just think it's just a shitty movie? I just want to know. And obviously we're not going to know that, but
Yeah.
I like the story just because once again we have a lack of faith. We have we find out the twist at the beginning, when the husband is having to choose between his unborn child and his wife, who he needs
But
to pick.
yeah, he actually chose the wife, which in the beginning, Katrina and I both were like, because we've had this discussion. My wife
Hmm.
and I have had this discussion that if it comes down to, the wife or the child, they should always choose the wife. Like, that's your partner. That's the person. You can maybe have another kid
You can
afterward.
you can have another child or adopt. I
Yeah,
mean,
or adopt.
really.
You don't like that was what was so frustrating. And then we were just like, oh man, he chose the child. Like, and we knew he would because that's the whole movie. But it was
Right.
just still like, that sucks. And then you find out later that he did choose the wife.
Yeah, he said,
And it
"Nope,
was like,
save my
oh
wife."
shit. So and then the demon
yeah,
uses
that
that
was a
against him.
pretty shocking moment in the theater.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think a lot of people probably have a problem with that alone because we're in such a fevered state of, oh, we need to save the unborn. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It just we're in that climate right now, and I didn't see that coming, and I feel like I should have. I feel like I should have seen that he
Yeah.
chose the wife, um,
Same.
but you could tell he still loved this child and was devoted to this child, and
Exactly.
I
Oh,
mean,
for sure, yeah.
for him to be out there looking for this girl and wanting to, the relationship he and his daughter had was, to me, was far better than the relationship that the other parents
Oh
had with
yeah.
that kid.
Absolutely.
Um, and I don't know. I really enjoyed seeing the different aspects. I'm just one of those people. I'm always so happy when I see Black people represented in horror movies on screen, and we're always from different facets and different walks of life. So to me, I thought, oh, well, this was really a brave and bold thing to
Yeah.
have not only have two girls being possessed, and then to have all of these different religions coming together, and then to have the ending that we get. I was just like blown away by it, and I think that's why I liked it so much. It was
And
so original. Go ahead, Katrina.
was the priest white, or I can't remember.
I think he was Latino. I want to
Yeah, I
say,
think it was Hispanic. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I
Latino or
thought,
Hispanic.
was that he was a not white like Catholic priest. I mean, like Catholicism is very, very prominent in like Hispanic countries, but
right.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like it was cool seeing that somebody in America was like a Hispanic priest. I thought that was
Right.
interesting as well.
Yeah.
Like
No, and I think
another
again,
addition to the diversity in this film.
Right.
right. Yeah, no, and I think that was what also, was some of the woke complaints was like you had a more diverse cast, you had the alternate religions represented and stuff like that. And I think that's what bothered people, like some people. But again, I
Yeah.
think most people who looked at this and went into it, most of their complaints were about David Gordon Green, and or and I saw people I respect having issues with the movie, and some of their complaints were about the Chris McNeil character's position in it, and all of that, and I can somewhat understand that. That's fine. Some people were just like, oh, this was a good movie, it just shouldn't have been called Exorcist, it shouldn't have been part of the franchise. And I'm like, yeah, but
Hmm.
why couldn't it have been there, and again, I think totally, and this is what I was mentioning earlier, is that I think Chris McNeil's placement in this movie was to get us to Reagan. That was
Right.
all it was to introduce her, get her to help bring this group together, to help exorcise this demon out of these girls, and then to bring Reagan into the mix that'll be in the next couple of movies.
Right. I
I
think
think that's largely the whole reason.
the only thing I really didn't like about them bringing her character back is that, she herself even told the dad, I think it was Leslie Odom Jr. that
Yeah.
played the dad. She even told him, well, I was never in the room when the exorcist happened, when the exorcism
Right.
was taking place. And then she willingly goes into this house. Not granted, she's a mom and she wants to help, but I wish they hadn't have had her be blinded. I mean, I know
Yeah.
she was going there to assist, but I would have liked for her to at least, maybe if she had just talked with him and given him some backstory and then have Reagan show up at her house. I felt like, blinding her, I felt like that was just too cruel.
Yeah.
She was already
Yeah.
going through not seeing her daughter, and now she literally cannot see her daughter. It's that was a little rough for me. I didn't like, the fact that she came out just to be maimed. And like you said, of course, the reconciliation between her and Reagan to set up all of the other movies. But I wish they hadn't have wounded her so terribly. That didn't sit well with me. Um, and I know I'm being schmaltzy, but that's kind of nitpicky.
No.
But that's the only thing that I was just kind of like, ooh, she showed up just to get hurt. And I guess they wanted something shocking to happen to a legacy
Yeah.
character, which, I guess it's okay. But
Which they
I,
do, like, we've seen this, and I just saw this online today too. Somebody was like, oh, which one of these shouldn't have been like which one of these legacy characters shouldn't have been in like a more recent thing. And it was like
mhm,
Lori, Sally from Texas Chainsaw, and oh man, who was the other one? I don't remember, but it was somebody else who I think died in the
mhm,
more recent thing. And it was just like, yeah, because Sally's character didn't serve much of a purpose. She gets, like, spoiler warning, in the new Texas Chainsaw
right,
Massacre, the Netflix version, she dies
right,
quick too. So it's like she puts up barely any fight. And so it is kind of a waste of a character. It's like, why even bring her back if you're going to kill her off like that? Um, at least with Lori fights and wins, so um but yeah, it's weird when they bring back legacy characters and they just, don't get me wrong, I think it's fine if you're going to do that and you're going to
mhm,
maim them or kill them or whatever like that, but like, it's different when it's somebody like, again, spoilers for a recent ish movie, Scream 5, when Dewey dies. That's a legacy character, but his carried so much emotional weight to
right,
it that, like, that one hurt, and that's why it meant so much, and that's why you had to do it.
mhm,
And so I feel like you can do it, but you have to make it worth it. And I just think that, like, that is the one criticism I would have with Chris McNeil's, like, character in that, is being blinded and then not ever being able to see her child
yeah,
again.
that didn't sit well with me.
Just, yeah, it felt cruel. And again, demons are cruel, so, but it just feels like, as the writer, you're just being very cruel about it. So yeah. What about you, Katrina? Anything else you want to mention about it?
Can't think of anything off the top of my head. You guys have like really hit you guys have really hit like all of the points that like I was going to talk about. So like
Sorry.
it's okay. But that I yeah. I like the movie. It was very diverse. I like seeing diverse characters and diverse stories
Yeah,
being told on
I did
screens
too.
because it sucks to keep watching the same shit over and over and over again. And
seriously.
it's nice to have something new. And especially with horror movies, things can get kind of redundant and I feel like horror movies kind of run into not having diverse casts because a lot of them run on lower budgets and like I feel like that's an excuse that a lot of them make. But you can make really good horror movies with diverse casts.
Right.
And I think they're honestly like better films when they have a diverse cast.
Hmm.
No, absolutely. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
again,
really.
yeah, go
Oh, go
ahead.
ahead.
Sorry. No,
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 I was
no.
just going to
You
say,
go.
I really like what they did with this because, like Katrina was saying, we've got the priest and we've got, I really love the backstory on the nun who was the nurse.
Yes. Yeah.
And then
Oh,
we find out that
yes,
she
yeah.
was almost a nun and that she had a baby, but that blew my mind. And I was like, here it is. This is like a really loud message to all of these people who, think that you're a terrible person if you don't have a baby because it's not what you want at that time.
Right.
And here she is risking her life to help these two girls.
Yeah.
And I was just, going full in to do the exorcism because the priest couldn't. And he hands her the book. I thought, man, he's passing her the torch. He already knows, but he's letting her do it. All of these things made this movie so much more compelling to me. And the love that that dad had for his daughter. Not that the other parents didn't love their daughter, but he just fought harder for his kid. And
Yeah.
I really love that, the fact that he remembered to go get that
Grab that
scarf that she
scarf.
wanted.
Yeah.
That those little things matter. I cannot tell you, just knowing that someone cares that much for you and is willing to go however far, and then to have all of these people in the community. I think one of the guys was like what, his next door neighbor, or he lived in the neighborhood along with the priest. And he was just,
Yeah.
every time I saw him I thought of Drew Carey, and I know he's not Drew Carey, but that's what I thought of when I saw him. But he was just such a nice person. He was just there being so supportive of his friend. And
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
to see that, what it made that exorcism feel like, yeah, these girls have a fighting chance. And then to have that
Right.
heart-wrenching scene of that girl, being sucked down into hell. I was like, oh my
Oh my
God.
God.
I
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
just you damned this girl. That girl's gone. That's it. And I
That
was, I think that shook me more than anything. It's like after
that
I
one,
watched that.
yeah, that was so rough. I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe they're showing that, like her being
Yeah.
pulled into hell like that. That was cruel.
Yeah, I think that might have probably been the scariest thing for me as a parent. Just to think, I
Right?
once again, I'm one of these people just like you guys. I'm not religious at all, but my God, I can only imagine if I damned my kid,
Yeah.
because they truly believe in their faith. They're going to be tormented for the rest of their life because they know this girl
Yeah.
is gone. Um, yeah, for me personally, it was a great watch. It was a fun watch. I definitely would watch this again. Like this would be in a rotation. I hope that they can stick the landing if they're doing sequels or when the sequels come out. I really, really
Yeah.
hope they can.
I hope
Yeah.
so too. There's been talk of him not directing the next one. He'd still write it, I guess, but I guess there's been so much flack about it that, he's talking about, or there's rumors that he might step back as a director, but it's probably just people's wishful thinking.
Yeah.
Um, because I honestly, I still, Katrina and I talked about this last year, with the Halloween trilogy that he did. That is a great Halloween trilogy, in my opinion. I know there's a lot of people who don't like, especially the last movie, but I thought it was good for what it was doing, so
I'm in the camp that doesn't really like that last movie. I felt I if you're doing a movie that is supposed to be the end of Michael Myers, why is half of the film about some random ass dude that got introduced in this movie? Like, that's my opinion on it. I could go on a 30-minute rant about how this movie like betrayed me and betrayed the honor of Michael Myers as like a character and as as a villain. Like, you made Michael look weak. And I think that is a terrible thing because Michael Myers has always been this like insanely like strong
Unstoppable force.
character.
Yep.
Exactly. Like, and there's no rhyme or reason for what he does. And then you go and do this in the last movie and make him this weak, old, brittle old man. Fuck
Yeah,
that. Like, I'm
but see,
sorry, but
that's what I
like that
liked
is
about
such
it. So
I know because Michael is Michael. He should like why weren't we seeing these weaknesses in the past few movies? He literally got stabbed in the fucking neck and killed all of
because
those
this movie
people
was
in the fucking
4 years
street in the
later
second movie.
after that moment. Oy.
But that still
So,
shouldn't mean that yeah. Moving on. I'm sorry.
so I'm gonna just put this out here, and I don't know if there are anybody that's making these movies or listening, but could we please, for the love of God or whatever deity you choose, have an actual prequel about Father Marin so we can see exactly what he
Well,
encountered that gave
they
him the
did
heart
that.
issue? I'm
They
not
did
talking
that.
about,
They did two prequel movies,
I want
Dominion
good ones.
and yeah.
I mean good ones.
All right.
Because
Well, you have to
the
clarify because they did do two
the
of the
Dominion,
same damn movie.
those movies do not, we need something that's gonna give me real tangible, believable facts. I want a good Hollywood movie like this. Like I
Yeah.
just want somebody to break it down. And once again, since we already had the Yoruba religion, bring in some more religion from different
Right.
aspects and flesh that out. I would rather see any priest going through anything else than just a regular run of the mill, demonic possession.
Right.
This was a fresh take on that, and I enjoyed it. I really did. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Woke or not, I don't care. It was really good. To me,
Agreed.
it held my attention, and it did what it was supposed to do.
Absolutely
I
agreed.
think that this movie specifically, compared to the first one, it did a good job at making all of these characters feel like their own individuals and they had their own motives and their own like aspirations and their own backstories and all of this. And they did a really good job at doing that within the same amount of time that the original one was given.
This
But
movie
the
was
original
11
one
minutes shorter than the first movie and told more story. Just
I
saying.
like like being like I could not tell you the characters' names after I finished that first movie after I had just watched it. I I I could barely tell you the name of the girl who got like possessed. Like that was how much that this movie did not one grab my attention and two didn't really flesh out the characters in a way that made me feel connected to them in the story.
Right. Right.
And this movie did a much better job at doing that in a much shorter time. So it's not that the original movie is necessarily bad, but it definitely could have been done better. And other horror films at the time did do better at
Hmm.
fleshing out certain
Mm-hmm.
characters
I
and things
agree.
like that. And so I feel like it was just a lack of good writing maybe or a lack of like direction. Like I'm not sure if they rushed it or what, but like it just felt like it could have been done better. And they did do better. And I think that that's something to like say about this new one is that I felt more connected to all of the characters
Hmm.
than I did in for the original.
So y'all heard it here on Creeping Geeky that we all like the new Exorcist better than the original. That's your hot take for the day.
I mean, they can come fight me. I don't really care.
Oh, they can come fight me too. They all know I'm full of hot takes.
I mean, it's
So
it's it's our own personal opinion, and
exactly.
it's and your opinion is The Exorcist is one of the best horror movies. I will give you that it is a good movie. It's just
Yeah,
not one that's for me. That's my
exactly.
only
Same.
hot take on that.
Yeah, I can guarantee you I will never watch it again. I did my duty to watching it this time. I'm never watching that movie again. There's
I'll
no
probably wait
reason for it.
another 10 or 15 years before I go back to it. I'll be honest with
Same.
you.
I've got no desire to watch it again. I had no desire to watch it until they made these damn new ones, and I was like, okay, fine, I'll rewatch the original so I can kind of know what was going on
Yeah.
with this new one, and that was pretty much it. But yeah, I don't think I'll ever do it again, regardless. But I will watch 2 and 3, and I'll watch the prequel movies.
Yes,
And
please, because I have to talk to somebody about those movies. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
and then people have said the Exorcist TV series was really good. So
That was good.
that's
Yeah, that was really
yeah.
good.
I haven't seen it either, and apparently that was a legacy sequelish as well.
Yeah.
So definitely something to look forward to. So, all right. Well, I'm done. I have exorcised these demons.
Oh
So
my goodness. He did not.
I did.
Lame. Lame.
Yes. Anyway, so I'm done. Why don't you guys tell people where they can find you online? Katrina, why don't you start?
You can find me on Twitter or X at RCKMNKY. And there I have a pinned post with all of my other socials that you can follow me at.
All right, and Donna.
Yeah, I am also on X and Instagram, Donna underscore THA _dead. I also have a podcast, Donna the Dead podcast, so you can listen to me wherever you find those. And I'm usually a frequent guest here, so I'm sure I'll be back here again.
Yes, you will. Probably pretty soon, even. So, but yeah, no, all right. I appreciate both of you guys coming on. I had a good time, and I'll see you guys back here soon.
Yeah, happy 100th.
Yeah, thank you.
Woohoo!
Yay! Thanks again to Donna and Katrina for joining me on this 100th episode. On Monday, Nat Bremer joins me for part 2 in my Chucky series with Child's Play 2 and 3. And on Friday, Violet Hammond returns to the show to talk about Avengers Infinity War. Thanks for listening. Creepy and Geeky is a part of the Morbidly Beautiful podcast network. Please check out morbidlybeautiful.com/podcasts for more great shows. If you like what you've heard, please consider giving the show 5 stars and a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Also, please share the podcast on social media to help spread the word. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app or at creepyandgeeky.com. Music for the podcast is Gratitude, composed by Jerry Smith. You can follow the podcast on social media at Creepy and Geeky on both Twitter and Instagram. If you'd like to follow me, I'm Geek Thulu on Twitter and Blue Sky, and geek.thulu on Instagram. You can support the podcast by ordering teas and more on TeePublic or by donating to the coffee page. All of the links are in the show notes. Finally, don't forget, stay creepy.